Hello, welcome back into In the Pocket Across the Pond. I'm Lewis. I'm joined as always by the two Alexes, and this week we're talking week 3. We're talking all of those rookie breakout performances. Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbours, Roma Dunzu, a really good game as well. We're also going to be chatting about some of the more worrying teams in the league, the Bengals, the Jags, a lot of blowouts this week, and obviously we're going to be bringing you our projection beaters, our forget about it for week 4. Stay tuned, and as always we'll be trying our very best to give you the best fantasy football advice that we can. Full house again this week, lads. Full house. All three of us back. First time since week 1. I noticed you guys started with a bit of trivia last week. It wasn't a bit of trivia. Al was just trying to catch you out, Sharples. But I thought we'd start with a bit of trivia again. This isn't really anything. I just thought it was interesting. When I was looking at the teams this week, 3 teams have failed to score more than 18 points in a game this year. Can you name those 3 teams? Scored less than 3 touchdowns in any game.
I wouldn't be surprised if one, if not multiple, of these teams has a winning record or have had at least won a game. That being said, I'm going Titans.
Yeah. Any other ideas?
Jaguars.
I think
Jaguars are one.
I think the Dolphins have to be on there, don't they?
I was about to say, I've got a wild card and I'm going to say the Dolphins as well.
The Dolphins have scored more than 18 points.
Have they? Could you tell us if this team remaining has got a winning record or has won a game?
They've won a game. They've not got a winning record.
Chargers?
So I'm thinking Patriots?
No.
And they've won
The Bears?
They've won a game.
The Bears.
No. The Bears have actually scored more than 18 points in a game. If you can believe that.
It can't be the Falcons, can it?
They're close, but no, not the Falcons.
It's not the Broncos because they got 26 this week.
It's not.
They were a playoff team last year.
Browns.
The Browns, who I think have been really disappointing because that defense hasn't been great either. What's going on with the Browns? They're sort of just irrelevant. Do you not think?
It feels like all the progress that they made last year, where it's like, we've got to get this quarterback kind of back to speed with the NFL and do all this, and it's going to be a rough season. But we got there in the end, unreal season, progress on next year, and then we've kind of started again. Weirdly.
Well, no, the key problem... The key
feels
problem
like Deshaun
though is
Watson
that,
again hasn't played for years.
The key problem though is that they did get a quarterback up to pace with the league and back on form again. They just let him go to the Colts, Joe Flacco. Yeah. But let's get into week 3, the games. I want to start with the Rams' comeback victory against the 49ers. 13 points deficit that they came back from. Yeah. I said when I was making my Brandon Ayuk projection beater, which didn't work out, but part of that was accurate, was these matchups are never simple with McVay and Shanahan. Fair play to the Rams, I would say, but what do you reckon of this one, Al? Like, is this signs of life for the Rams, or more so the 49ers being a bit like, I don't know?
I mean, I thought Brock Purdy looked mint, to be honest.
He did.
Brock Purdy played great, and the stat sheet says that as well. Stafford did what he needed to do. Obviously, Kyron Williams is kind of seasonal breakout game, are we calling it? They kind of looked like they wanted it a bit more. I don't know. You've seen some teams kind of stumbling out the blocks, a lot of teams stumbling out the blocks, to be honest with you. And when we were ready to write the Rams off, I mean, don't get me wrong, San Francisco are riddled with injuries as well, of course. You know, I'm sure you'll get into it. I'm sure you'll get into it, Lou. But the sending McCaffrey all the way to Germany to see a Achilles specialist when, I don't know, do they just want to rip the Band-Aid off and tell us that he's torn his Achilles?
Don't.
I think that's what it feels like. Does anyone get the impression that that's just what they're not telling us?
Maybe.
Okay. Anyway, we'll get into it, I'm sure, in injuries.
Yeah. I did like this game. I like what I saw from the Rams. The Rams are like, I don't know, they've obviously won a Super Bowl recently and a lot more recently than the 49ers, and Sean McVay's a great coach, but they always seem like the underdogs in this matchup. Like, for as long as I can remember, it's all, you know, they've always been like, the ones who you're sort of rooting for to come out on top. Even though, like I said, they've had the most recent history of success. Another dominant win in all phases for the Vikings. Dominated the Texans 7-34. Sharples, answer me this, right? Because I know you'll like my wording of this. Is there a world where Sam Darnold remains the starting quarterback of this team after this season? And what would it take for that to be the case?
I think there's definitely a world where that happens. And to be honest, I'm not expecting to go out and throw 4 touchdowns every game, but if he keeps up just the consistency, the way he played, even the first 1 or 2, I think particularly because obviously McCarthy looked good in pre-season, but he's still a rookie, he's still an unknown quantity. I mean, you look at the way they play and the way the offense is flowing. I think if he, like I said, not expecting this kind of big game every week, but if he remains consistent, it'd be a big call for Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings to then drop him at the end of the season for what will then be technically, I suppose, a second-year JJ McCarthy, but who's never played a snap in the NFL. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, based on this, I certainly wouldn't drop him at the end of this year.
But I mean, they're quite fortunate in the fact that the rookie prospect who they drafted, JJ McCarthy, is really young, and he's the type of prospect who you could sit for multiple years. I could easily see it happening, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I mean, I almost didn't see it like that just because I've been sort of brainwashed into this idea that like you have to start these quarterbacks right away and stuff. But no, yeah, maybe JJ McCarthy is one of those guys who you sit for multiple years behind, obviously a battle-worn quarterback like Sam Darnold. I think, I mean, if this team gets to the playoffs, I think it's a surefire Sam Darnold is the quarterback next year. But they've looked mint, and the defense as well under Brian Flores has been dominant. Like, they've not been playing bad offenses. This is the Texans, the 49ers as well. They've been just dominating on all phases. Speaking of domination, the Bills pretty much won that game in the second quarter. Bills 47, Jags 10. This was just too easy, wasn't it, Al?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing games like this at least one a week, where the game's kind of over essentially almost before it's begun. The Saints in the first 2 weeks, arguably our game, the Cowboys game this week as well, kind of over before it's even started. But certainly this Bills game, I mean, the Bills look really good. Kind of don't want to be fooled into that the Bills are going to the Super Bowl thing because they look this good multiple times a year, even if they have, no doubt they'll have a down spell in a couple of weeks as well. But, I mean, they look great at the moment. I would say the Jaguars look terrible.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on here. I don't know when they signed, the Giants have got Dan Jones at quarterback now, and it looks like the Jaguars signed Daniel Jones. I mean, is Trevor... Are we at the point now where we can kind of make a judgment on Trevor Lawrence, do you think? Because by no means is Doug Peterson one of these coaches that's like, he ruins quarterbacks. Actually the opposite, to be honest. So what are we doing with this now?
I mean, this is a spoiler. I was going to get to this point on my worst team in the league pick, but with Lawrence, there's massive questions at this point because I like the guy, but this is an organisation who's just paid $275 million to a guy who has looked bad. Mobility as a pocket passer, arm talent, literally nothing has jumped off the screen for Lawrence, especially this year when you want him to be taking a step up. He's still young, he's still only 24, loads of time, but he's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've been well disappointed, really, because I think he's looked worse this year.
You're talking about a guy who I remember hearing about him before he went to Clemson, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A guy who I think, because they both happened while I've been watching the NFL and following the draft, a guy who I think was more hyped up than Caleb Williams was this year, and that was hyped up to an ungodly extent. You know, best prospect since Andrew Luck we were hearing, and he's not shown... I don't think he's shown even what CJ Stroud has shown, and Stroud's only been in the league a year. I'd much rather... This is kind of like an ice-cold take, but I'm saying I would much rather have Stroud than Lawrence, and given the context of how long Lawrence has been in the league, and the kind of who he was before he came into the league as well, yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, just mid. Mid. Speaking of not mid, speaking of bad, the Bengals are 0-3. They got beat by the Commanders in what was a decent game. Commanders 38, Bengals 33. We'll get on to the specific players in this game when we talk about the players, you know, the best players on the week fantasy football wise, because I know there's a certain player in this game who looked unbelievable, I'd say, and it wasn't Joe Burrow. Although Joe Burrow, you know, 300 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. This Bengals team just, what's going on? I saw a clip of Zach Taylor walking straight to the head coach's office with Joe Burrow as soon as the final whistle, as it were, went. There was clips of him, instead of walking into the locker room with everybody else, them two went into the office together. Yeah, it's like we were saying, it's like this Bengals team, a lot of people are seeing it now as well. They're very loud, quite obnoxious, not won anything though. I don't know, maybe they do start out slow, but this is very slow. Very, very slow. I mean, if you just look in division, like the Ravens are hopefully getting rolling now. The Steelers, who you would hope to be like, okay, it's fine, we'll finish above them though. Well, they're 3-0. So, I don't know. But the Commanders on the other side, they can put up some points, Sharples.
Yeah, they certainly did. I mean, obviously, Jaden Daniels looked good before this game, but this, you know, talk about season breakout, so maybe this is just a general breakout. Obviously, this was it, because it wasn't just the rushing ability, which is what props up a lot of rookie quarterbacks. It was the passing, you know, the bomb that he made to Terry McLaurin. And if you're if you're the Bengals defense, like, you can't allow that to happen. Do you know what I mean? You want to force him. You want to force him into making bad decisions, which, you know, they should be prone to do. But he was under very little pressure, and, you know, showed what he can do when you give him the time. So yeah, what a game.
Maybe that's one of those plays that just will never be able to happen again for that team, because obviously it's 3rd and long right at the end of the game. The Bengals are like, this guy's never throwing this pass to him. We'll just do single coverage on Terry McLaurin, just one man on him. We'll dare him to make the throw, and he does, and it's incredible. And it's also amazing catch by Terry McLaurin, who is still an excellent wide receiver. He's just obviously his career's been overshadowed for bad quarterback play, bad team, but great catch. And yet Jaden Daniels looked decent.
Excellent.
Yeah,
looked excellent. Yeah, I mean, what was he? 21 for 23.
Yeah,
250 and 2. I mean, rushing touchdown, but like not a great deal of rushing yards. I mean, this is what he did at LSU. Kind of diced people up as well as being an elite runner. Yeah, I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, his offense is flash. His offense is also completely bomb sometimes. But I mean, if they can do this, you're happy if you're a Terry McLaurin owner. Shout out to Luke McCaffrey as well.
He looked good.
Yeah.
He's got that McCaffrey run, do you not think? The same run. Quite mechanical. Very, very studied run.
No, I only watched the highlights of this game, so maybe I didn't see every snap, but I heard some sick rumours going around that Austin Eckler looked fast.
He did. I did see some of this game, and I thought I was watching, like a replay from a couple of years ago. Chargers match.
That stadium is on a slope, though, isn't it?
Stadium's on a slope, and he was also on skis, and had a jetpack on. But he looked fast.
Yeah, to be fair, he made that touchdown. It wasn't gift wrap. Like he got to the edge, and he did look good. But the other, I mean, Robinson also looked good as well. And so it's sort of like, it's always, even if Eckler does look good, the best it can be is a committee, I think. So I wouldn't get too excited. Yeah. But he looked good.
Ish. The Panthers' offense looked good. I'm really annoyed that I didn't make Deontay Johnson my projection beater last week, because I wasn't on the show to talk about it, but I thought that that Andy Dalton could do something with this Dave Canales offense. We've seen this exact thing from Canales with Geno Smith, with Baker Mayfield, guys who have been in the league, who know how to play the game, who maybe have fallen on hard times, who just need someone to resurrect the career. Bryce Young has never had a career, so there's nothing to resurrect. But Andy Dalton, a guy who can
I would like to fall on the same hard times as those people, please. Those millionaire
hard times in terms of quarterback play in the NFL. Yeah. But yeah, wow. Beat the Raiders. Andy Dalton slicing and dicing, 3 touchdowns, 300 yards, all that stuff. The Raiders. Do you see what Antonio Pierce said after the game?
Was it about... I know it.
It was something decisions. That you probably shouldn't say.
People were making business decisions out there, so we're going to make a few in the office, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. And people are speculating. Well, everybody's obviously speculating that it's about Devontae Adams, whereas there's actual footage of, some defensive players maybe taking the edge off some of the tackles and stuff. So you don't know, but obviously that's not a good thing for your head coach to come out and say, really.
No.
But yeah, Panthers going to be interesting. Let's see, because the Raiders aren't a bad defense, so let's see if they can replicate something like that. The Ravens almost gave up another fourth quarter lead. Luckily for them, they were playing against the only bigger bottle job in the league, the Cowboys. So they actually won the game. This ain't looking good for the Cowboys. This is not looking good, because this game looked close, but it was a blowout.
Yeah,
it was a blowout.
Absolutely was.
The Cowboys just a bit of garbage time, end up getting close. Onside kick recovered as well.
That was ridiculous. Did you see that? I know people say this all the time, and obviously it's easy to say, but I could have caught that. I could have stopped that onside kick.
I did.
It was on the floor. It was relatively stationary. and he jumped on it, and it just popped out under it like it was I don't know, like a small mammal, a small wolverine, a muskrat.
Yeah, I know. I don't understand that either. But maybe it's either in the moment. But yeah, it's like, how don't you catch that? The Broncos upset the Bucks 26-7. I don't know. How can you call half of these games? Like, who says that was going to happen? You know
That was ridiculous.
Well, that was the weird result of the week.
Yeah. And Bo Nix looked fine. Okay. They actually let him throw it a bit further downfield. So, yeah, we'll see the Steelers are 3-0, Chiefs are 3-0, Seahawks are 3-0. I mean, one of which you would have said at the start of the season. The Seahawks one's interesting. And they haven't necessarily been like sort of winning it how you think. I mean, even in this game with Miami not doing anything on offense, the Seahawks just sort of stalled. But they're winning.
I mean, that game was long done, though. I mean, already it was the backup quarterback, and then he goes out because he was getting absolutely teed off on every play. It was done. Yeah,
it was quite cruel.
It was very cruel
in the end because he was like he got hit that hard that he came back into the game and someone like poked him and he was like, I'm done. I can't do any more.
Yeah. They need another quarterback. Yeah. They need a quarterback, this team. Impressive victory. Let's start with that. Al.
My impressive victory this week. We've talked about both teams. I'm deciding between two. I did really like the Commanders game, but I'm going to go Bills because they kind of iced it really early, looked really dominant.
Sharples?
I went for the Minnesota Vikings.
Nice, yeah. Dominant display. I went for the Commanders, yeah. Mainly because Jaden Daniels looked elite. I mean, maybe this is a poor Bengals defence, but regardless, that was a breakout. Not buying it, win, Al.
The Panthers.
The Panthers? He's not buying it after
they're not going to do this every week.
Spectacular showing.
Well, they're not going to do this every week, are they? Let's be honest, Lou. Come on. Andy Dalton, the Panthers, they've not just got like a wealth of amazing offensive players all of a sudden. So now...
Okay, so you're out on the playoff run.
Very.
Sharples.
I went for the Colts. Just really hit and miss. Like, I feel like this year is going to be, they'll win a few, then they'll lose a few. You're waiting for it to just click and not seeing it yet.
Yeah. I went the Colts as well. Poor game. Two bad teams. Yeah, someone had to win it, I guess, but... Worst team in the league. Who is the worst team in the league? Al.
Oh, and it gives me so much pleasure to say this. It's the Bengals.
Yeah.
That cursed picture of Joe Burrow at the UFC with his good friend.
I mean, the 49ers are 1-2, so maybe they're getting hit by the cursed picture as well.
The Nick Bosa cursed picture.
Yeah. Sharples, who's the worst team in the league?
This week, I will be giving my Carolina Panther Award for the worst team of the week to a team which is sliding. I mean, they won the first one but then slumping with two back-to-back defeats. Looked terrible. Scored a few garbage time points with the aid of an onside kick recovery. It is, of course, the Dallas Cowboys.
Right. You know what? Before the Monday night games, it was going to be the Cowboys for me as well, because I've been that disappointed. But then, the Monday night games give us two excellent options. Al, you've gone for one of them. I'm going for the Jaguars, averaging 13 points a game, and they got blown out by a team who, if the Jaguars are going to be where they want to be, they got to be competing against them. So, and they just didn't. So the Jaguars, for me, are the worst team in the league. But let's get on to some players The best plays in the week. Congratulations if you had Juwan Jennings on your team. 11 receptions, 175 yards, 3 touchdowns, 46.5 fantasy points. Why? Why do that to us?
To you.
It's a great performance. Brock Purdy only had eyes for Juwan Jennings in this game. Don't know what to say.
How many
really
points did he score against you, Lou?
46.5.
46.5.
Someone was playing him against you.
Someone was playing him against me.
On his way to a 200-point week.
On his way to a 200-point week. This is in PPR, 10 team, 2 flex. So 200 points is
when one player gets a
upper.
quarter of those points.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a season where so far it's a regular occurrence that you're going to have a 0-pointer or a 0 point something on your team. Most teams, all 3 weeks so far, will have had someone who scored less than 4 fantasy points on the team. I know I have every single week, but I've probably been against a team that has had one, if not multiple.
Yeah. The number one running back so far on the season, Saquon Barkley. Over 150 total yards, 2 touchdowns, 33.6 fantasy points, a 2-point conversion as well. It's looking great. He does look great.
Yeah.
And then Karen Williams, as we said, also over 100 total yards, 3 touchdowns, 31.6 points. Great game. Josh Allen, we said, it's dominant. I mean, it's, who needs Stephon Diggs, you know what I mean? Derrick Henry, 151 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. You can run all over Dallas. You can run all over Dallas.
He looked like a dad playing against his toddlers in the driveway.
He did.
It was ridiculous.
He looked like those videos of mascots playing against kids.
Yeah.
And they just chuck him out the way and stuff. It was insane. Same game, Dak Prescott though, 3 total touchdowns, bit of garbage time, 29.86 points.
Time. I mean, just on the quarterbacks, we're only 3 weeks through the season, and we like to bring up the stat of how many more points McCaffrey has scored than the rest of the field at the end of the season. But you've got Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, and Lamar Jackson already pulling 10 points away from the 4th-ranked quarterback just 3 games in. You know what I mean? So, especially Josh Allen. There's genuine value in taking that guy in 2nd round of your draft, 3rd round of your 2nd, I think.
I got a question. I got a question for you.
Because you know he's going to get you 25 to 30 points every week, and I get the quarterback thing, but there's value in that. There's value in setting your team and knowing that those points are guaranteed every week, and at the minute you can't guarantee them anywhere else.
Yeah, I got a quick question for you, just because I think it's interesting. I don't know how many people will be in this situation, but I'm in a league where it's just a bit of a casual one, a random ESPN one, and I acquired Lamar Jackson, but I have Kyler Murray. And now, obviously, you'd think, no, Lamar Jackson, there you go. But I have Marvin Harrison Jr., so what's more valuable there? Lamar Jackson as the quarterback or the stack of Murray and Harrison?
I think from experience of having, and I've had elite stacks, I've had, Mahomes, Tyreek Hill stacks in the past. I think the nature of stacks is they can win you weeks.
When they hit.
But I mean, someone like Jackson, and at the moment, the points total that he's going to give you across the season, you're probably going to be better across the season with Jackson, even though you will be able to point to that week, and that week at the end of the season that you won because of your stack. So
yeah, fair. Good point. Jamar Chase, big game, 6 receptions, 118 yards, 2 tutties. Been waiting on that one. Maybe he's back. Slow start to these guys who missed training camp, like we said. Before the season, that's why we were wary of some of these guys. But
can I just get it's a live trade reaction on the pod? it relates to our main league, so
Sure.
listeners, we're going to take this discussion pretty seriously. Our brother, Lewis, has just texted me and said, "Can I interest you in Jordan Mason?"
Ooh.
Now, he knows that I'm pretty desperate for running back help. My running backs are Travis Etienne, Ramondre Stevenson, full stop. So, yeah, I mean, I've been pretty out on Jordan Mason, and I've been pretty vocal about it. But I'm also very, very worried about Christian McCaffrey now. What do you two... I suppose, let's talk about your temperature on Jordan Mason, both of you. Just because this is probably a hot topic.
I mean...
I think... Yeah, go on, Sharples.
Well, as we've seen, like, as long as McCaffrey's out, you're looking at a 16-point floor, which is obviously very juicy. But when McCaffrey comes back, he is just going to be the guy. So...
But here's the thing, when McCaffrey
back.
comes back. But here's the thing, when McCaffrey comes back, let's say it's a when, by the time McCaffrey's back, I've got Nick Chubb sitting on my IR. So...
I don't think I have enough faith in Nick Chubb anymore to have that as much of a...
Okay.
But then equally, I suppose if you... Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah.
I think Mason will be a solid low end running back one for as long as he's the starter.
You're not going to believe... I don't even want to read out what he said. I don't want to embarrass him by reading out who he said for. I said for, ? And he texted me back saying, a wide receiver... Amon-Ra St. Brown.
No, never.
Oh, Adam.
No, because this is Jordan Mason's a guy who, when McCaffrey's back, he's completely tanked in value. And even before then, we've established over these past few weeks, he isn't McCaffrey. He doesn't have the receiving upside that McCaffrey does. He's a solid running back, but I think with Jordan Mason, for this whole time as a starter, he's going to average 16 points a game. It's going to be fine, but he's not going to be the wide receiver one that Christian McCaffrey is going to be. So someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who could easily end the season still as maybe the wide receiver one,
yeah, I mean,
not a chance. You look at
if you were 0-3, Al, and you needed a few quick wins, then maybe. But you're the opposite of that. You're 3-0. I don't think you need to make a short-term decision, and especially not for Amon-Ra St. Brown, Adam. You naughty man!
I mean, that's appalling behaviour from our league mate and a brother. There, anyway. Hopefully though, we kind of touched on some things regarding Jordan Mason there, which are useful.
Some more really good plays this week. Rashee Rice, 12 receptions, 110 yards and a touchdown. Sorry, people moaning about Travis Kelce, but this is the new Travis Kelce on this team. Malik Neighbours, 8 for 78, 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver one on the season. He looks amazing. He looks amazing.
Get used to it. I genuinely think get used to the kind of like... I don't think it's sticking my neck out too much to say he could be the wide receiver one at the end of the year.
He could be, because you see some of these plays, and obviously, don't completely overreact to this. I'm just saying what I've seen in 3 games. Obviously, you've had the big game from Marvin Harrison Jr., but I don't think I've seen Marvin Harrison Jr. like grab a play by the scruff of its neck and like be like, no, I'm making this play. Every single play of Neighbours, it looks like he's like, no, this is, I don't care where you are, the defender. This is my ball.
I think he did. I think he saw Rome Odunze give you some of those plays this weekend as well.
Yeah,
I do think.
But Neighbours, there was that one great catch where he sort of mossed someone completely over the top.
Oh, that Sharples, did you see that Neighbours catch where he grabbed it from the front of someone's like face guard?
The difference for me, the key difference between Neighbours and Harrison and Odunze is that Neighbours is the only thing in that offense. And that's going to be the difference, because Daniel Jones is just throwing him the ball every single time. And so, yeah.
And it worked in this game.
No,
it worked in this
it
game.
is working. And I mean, real life results, probably not going to work long term. But for fantasy, Al's right. If he keeps getting this amount of targets, then it's done. He's already the wide receiver one.
Yeah. Jane Daniels had a great game, as we said. Chuba Hubbard, Amari Cooper, Dallas Goedert, 170 receiving yards, which is insane. Jonathan Taylor, Deontay Johnson, 8 receptions, 122 yards, and a touchdown. Roma Dunze, as we said, 6 receptions, 112 yards, and a touchdown. Looked decent, looked nice. Keenan Allen, just stay at that pizza shop, mate. Don't come back. Because that was nice to see. Lamar Jackson with a big game, Aaron Jones, Brock Purdy, Car Bonnet, Cole Kmet, Malik Willis, Sam Darnold, yeah. Some players who didn't have good games, though. Calvin Ridley, Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson was such a bad taste because it was the Thursday night as well.
I'm stopping playing people in the Thursday night game because I've had people in the Thursday night game every week so far, and I think they've accumulated about 3 points for me. So I'm stopping playing people in those games because it's just awful.
Yeah. Andy Richardson. Is Anthony Richardson bad?
He certainly looks pretty terrible, doesn't he?
He's definitely not looked good, but it's far too early. Yeah. Far too early to be saying.
We were watching Red Zone together, and I did turn to Al and Adam, and I was like, what if he's just crap? Because we've not actually seen enough of him throughout his whole career, high school, college, whatever, to know. He might just be not good.
Oh, and sorry, Lou, did I say that I don't want to mischaracterise the players that I've played on a Thursday night, which were Mark Andrews, Keon Coleman, and Ramondre Stevenson over the first few weeks. I don't want to be harsh on them. I said I think they've only scored 3 points. It's actually 3.7. Nice, accumulated nice. 3.7. Anyway, carry on.
Tell you a quarterback who I do think is good, but hasn't been shining for fantasy. Jalen Hurts as well. I mean, listen.
He did have a rough game turnovers wise, though.
Yeah, he's struggled with turnovers for like going back to last year now as well. Really, but I don't really get all the hate on Jalen Hurts. I do think Jalen Hurts is a good player. Derek Carr, though, just when we all believed, Derek Carr, Cousin has a subpar game. Baker Mayfield as well. Yeah. What are you doing, lads?
I mean, the thing is, Lee, do you know the Andy Dalton stats? Obviously, Dalton was great this week. The reason I don't believe it is because I looked back at his stats and Dalton's not scored. I know he's not played that much, but he's not scored 20 fantasy points since November last year. And he hasn't kind of had 2 games where he's been an elite quarterback, talking like 30 points in a row, since November 2022.
Who's this?
Dalton.
Oh,
sorry, that's Mahomes. I meant Patrick Mahomes.
Oh my God, man.
Patrick Mahomes hasn't scored 20 fantasy points since last November, hasn't had 2 games of 30 fantasy points since November 2022. I'm just saying.
And how many Super Bowls has he won? Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes or Jane Daniels for fantasy football rest of season?
Jane Daniels. This is where
Sharples didn't answer.
Sorry, Richardson or Daniels? Oh, Mahomes or Daniels? Oh, goodness me. Yeah, I mean, it's been a small sample size, but I would also have to say Daniels, because like with this Chiefs team, like they're obviously 3-0. They're probably not going to be changing that much. Like they're winning games, so why would the injury aside? Why would they start changing the offense? And we've seen what Mahomes is in this offense. It's great in real life, but not great for fantasy. So I think you have to say Jaden Daniels.
And he's not been great for fantasy for a while. That's just what I'm trying to kind of get across.
That's true. That is true. He was like this last season.
Yeah. Yeah. Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, James Conner, Rashad White, all had poor games. CeeDee Lamb, not the best game. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, that's just because of the quarterback play. You just have to see what that team does in terms if they make any acquisitions. Zay Flowers, that was just a result of Derrick Henry just chewing the Cowboys up on the ground. Mike Evans, because Chris Godwin did have another nice game. So Mike Evans, I don't know, maybe this is just, he got the Patrick Surtain treatment, I think, as well in this one.
He'll be fine.
Raheed Shaheed, the big old goose. Goosey, goosey, goose. This is going to happen. No, I don't think any of us were sat here like, okay, this is it now. Raheed Shaheed sorted. Every week start. You know, this if he doesn't hit on one of those big plays, that's it. And I don't think I've ever in the whole time been watching. The whole time I've been watching, you know, NFL while Raheed Shaheed's been playing. I don't think I've ever seen him catch like a 10-yard pass. It's always like 50 yards. He's sort of the perfect receiver for Anthony Richardson. He'd probably get like 10 receptions a game, 200 yards.
Yeah,
I don't know about 10 receptions. I think it'd be 4 receptions for 200 yards.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Jameson Williams, poor game. Poor game. Just when we're putting confidence on his name as well. Mark Andrews, goosey goose. Yeah, are we worried?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't out there a lot either, was he?
Picking up if, like, for instance, someone like Cole Kmet is on your waiver wire, I'm picking him up and playing him this week over Andrews.
Sure. And Isaiah Likely as well didn't have a great game. But let's get to some news and injuries, mainly injuries this week. Devonta Smith, concussion protocol after the Sunday game. Trey McBride also in concussion protocol. So monitor those guys. Like we know about concussions, they're more than likely going to miss at least this week, I would say. Sam Laporta sort of went in and out of that game quite a bit. He's day-to-day with a low ankle sprain. Justin Herbert, right ankle injury. X-rays say it's negative, so we'll see about that. Just what was the analogy you said to me the other day about Justin Herbert, Al, on this team?
It's like taking an F1 car to an egg and spoon race.
Oh, you said that on the podcast last week.
Did I say that on the podcast? Oh, yeah. Well, it's good that the vibe of the podcast is that we feel like we're talking to you. I've taken a compliment, Luke.
It is disappointing what Justin Herbert is so far in this offense, but you can't deny that, like, if Justin Herbert's out, that does have implications on the rest of the offense as a whole. Adam Thielen, what a hero, placed on IR with a hamstring injury that he sustained with one hell of a touchdown catch. Like, one more for the road, boys. Bang. It was great to see. And this is a bit relevant just because of the position, just because of the team. Trent Brown, one of the key offensive linemen for the Bengals, season-ending knee injury and surgery. So, not great news for the Bengals offensive line there. But Al, I believe we all need to hold ourselves accountable, don't we?
Yeah. Some pretty symmetrical results this week, to be honest with you. Lou with the 2 hits, 2 misses, so we had Prescott with a big game and Ferguson at the tight end with a big game, both hits, but Pollard and Ayuk, your running back and wide receiver, misses. I just had the 2 hits, Sam Darnold with 23-pointer, and Malik Neighbours 28 points. Don't look now, but I've got the Midas touch at wide receiver so far this season. Gesicki was nothing at tight end, and it wasn't nothing. He was just not a bust or a miss, or a hit, sorry. And ETN just with the 12 points, which is okay considering how that game went. And then Sharps with the 1 miss, 1 hit. You had Minshew, who was serviceable. Jonnu Smith, we're playing the tight end game. He got 3.6, but it's not a miss. But Jameson Williams with a really bad game, 1.2. Carbonnet, though, on it. 25 points.
It was interesting with Charbonnet as well, because when I projected it, it was 7.5, although right before the game it jumped up to 16, and he was still a hit, so I'm pretty happy with that one.
Yeah,
it was still a hit. I mean, we got. I should say I see this as well when I'm kind of making the Instagram posts. Whenever we record this, be it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, we go off the projection then. So, like you just said, Sharps, if the projections jumped up at any point before, like Sunday, we're just going off what we're doing now. So the projection jumping up shows that you made a good pick.
So you're telling me Sharples has found another way to cheat?
He's found another loophole.
He's found another loophole. Right, let's look ahead to week 4. Week 4 in the National Football League. Al, are you going to start how we like to start?
Oh, yeah. Starting, as we do every week, with...
Forget about it.
Players that are locked into your lineup no matter what. Don't even think about it. Quarterback position, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. It's got to be Jaden Daniels as well.
Forget about it.
Running backs, you got Bijan Robinson, you got Breece Hall, you got Saquon Barkley, you got Kyron Williams, you got Alvin Kamara.
Forget about it.
Wide receiver position, CeeDee Lamb, Rashee Rice, Malik Neighbors, Jefferson, Chase, Nico Collins, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Forget about it.
I don't think we've got any other sections. I think that's it.
Is there actually none?
I mean, the whole premise of this section is, look, I mean, and you can stay there, pal. You can stay there for a second. The whole premise of this section is obviously the players that you're not even thinking about. Of course, there are other players who you're going to play that we've not mentioned, but these are just the guys basically who we think are going to smash it. You don't even think about it going into your lineup. They're essentially top 3, 4, 5 players at the position. I'm just thinking, is there a tight end at the minute who you're definitely playing, considering the fact that Trey McBride is questionable? Dallas Goedert's had one good game this year. Brock Bowers had a down week. George Kittle's questionable. No, you can leave, my friend. No one at tight end.
Well, that's a first.
I'm not staking this podcast's reputation on any tight ends at the minute, Lou. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, that's a first for the podcast. Mm-hmm. Well, while we're on tight ends, then, if there's none in the forget about it, let's start with tight ends for our projection beaters and see if there's any treasure in the muck. That's not a good analogy, is it?
That's not a saying. That is not a saying.
Sharples, why don't you give us some hope at the tight end position?
I'm really gutted that we start with tight ends and that you started with me, because I like to sort of build up on the ones where you have more to talk about, and then that gets me in the mood to talk about tight ends. I barely even made any notes for tight ends this week because I'm just like it's ridiculous, and so I just picked what is probably the most obvious based on last week. But I had to go for Cole Kmet, tight end for the Bears, projected 8.5 points. Yeah, I mean, 2-0 games in week 1 and 2, and then all of a sudden he explodes. 11 targets, turned it into 10 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, it's been really hard to predict this year with tight ends, but you have to think, rookie quarterback who's not started brilliantly. Suddenly in this game, he finds someone that he can throw the ball, hyper target them, and he catches pretty much every single one of the man gets in the end zone. That must translate into this, into this coming week. And I'm not saying he's going to get another 11 targets, but surely if a play breaks down or it's a 3rd and long or whatever, he's got to be looking Komet's way. And 8.5 is relatively safe, even if it's a quiet week for Komet. I would hope he's not going to be a bust, but. Having said that, he'll now probably goose or get minus points. So, yes, Cole Kmet, and could not be less enthusiastic about it if I tried.
Love it. Nice one. Al?
I'm going Tucker Craft, and I'm going to be even less enthusiastic. projected 7.4 against Minnesota. If Jordan Love plays, he won't be a miss. If Jordan Love doesn't play, then I'm just going to let this pick burn.
I'm going to go with Pat. I'm going to deliver this in even more of a downward
somber tone.
I'm going to go with Pat Fryermuth. Projected 8.
Nice.
Against Indianapolis. Numbers aren't flashy, but most tight ends this year, yeah, the numbers haven't been flashy at all. Fryermuth's averaging 7.3 fantasy points a game, 4 receptions in every game. You know, for a tight end you took in the later round of your fantasy draft, you're not over the moon, but obviously he's sort of doing the job you drafted him to do. Just sort of 7 to 8 points a game, say whatever, fine, I'll make up my points elsewhere. And I've got a bit more confidence in him this week because he's against the Colts, who just allowed that massive 10 reception, 97 yard, 1 touchdown game to Cole Kmet. So, yeah, I'm going to piggyback off that and go with Fryermuth. Let's jump all the way back to quarterback, Sharples.
Okay, here we go. Now, none of us wanted to pick him last week, but now that he's had his bust, we're more than ready for a bounce back week for Derek Carr, projected 14 points against the Falcons. Yeah, obviously there was no chance I was picking him last week. His projection was high. He'd had 2 really, really solid games where he'd been hit. There was just no chance that it was going to continue. But now that the bubble has burst, his projection's back down again. Everyone's thinking, oh, same old Derek Carr. He is ripe for selection. As we sort of mentioned, you know, he wasn't able to connect with Shaheed in this match, which, to be honest, is kind of what seemed to be the difference between a miss week and an okay week. I think there was, to be fair to him, there was a play where he hit Shaheed for, must have been 30, 40 yards, and Shaheed just dropped it in the end zone, so that could have been it. But you know, so overall, the Eagles' defense did play well. They stopped that threat. But I do think there was positive signs. He found Olave a lot more than he did in week 1 and 2. Hopefully that can continue. You know, the Falcons are a middling to not great defense, and the offense has shown that they can score a reasonable amount of points to hopefully keep it interesting and positive game script wise. You know, hopefully the Carr's going to need to keep throwing it. And, you know, just looking for a return to that Clint Kubiak magic that we saw in week 1 and week 2. So that's why I went for Derek Carr.
Nice. Al?
I'm going to go Dan Jones, formerly Daniel Jones. Bit worried because distinct lack of stubble or any form of beard on Sunday, but it still worked out fine. I'm still going to say that's Dan Jones under there. Projected 18.2 against my Dallas Cowboys. I think with Dan Jones, you're seeing flashes of kind of what Daboll was able to do with Josh Allen the year that he got him Stephon Diggs. Not saying that Dan Jones is going to end up being Josh Allen, but make no mistake, Malik Neighbors has helped this guy out. This is basically a Malik Neighbors pick this week, although Jones did have 236 and 2 last week. You give Dan Jones a guy with a catch radius that Neighbors has and can win in so many different ways, then Jones's interceptions are going to go down, his passing accuracy is going to go up. Dallas defense looks pretty lost at the moment. It's got Mike Zimmer's fingerprints all over it to me. Not a good coach. The numbers the numbers say that Dallas have allowed less than 190 passing yards per game, but let's look at that in context. The Browns game inflated those stats. Saints game was over before it even started, even though Carr did for over 240 in that game, and the Ravens game again was over before it started, and Lamar ripped him apart on the ground, 87 yards. Daniel Jones can run as well. Maybe he can get it done on the ground. Maybe he can have a rushing touchdown this week. I think he's going to throw it to Neighbors a whole bunch again. That relationship's going to grow. They're going to have chances to score this week. So, Dan Jones, projected 18.2.
Not Danny Jones?
No, I think it's more of a Dan.
What would it take for Danny Jones to...
maybe some hair poking out of the back of the helmet.
Nice. A mullet.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Geno Smith at Detroit, projected 16 points. Detroit, they're a pass funnel defence. They've been great against the run this year, but beatable through the air. And that's how Seattle wants their offense to run in the Grubb era. Geno Smith had 34 passes last week, 44 pass attempts the previous week. Especially with Ken Walker potentially still out. I know Carbonnet had a decent game last week, but the key playmakers are in the passing game for Seattle, and they'll need those guys this week in what's going to be a competitive game. Seahawks are 3-0, Detroit are 2-1. Two teams in tough divisions as well, so every game is a must-win. Smith, he hasn't thrown multiple passing touchdowns in a game yet this year, but I think this is the match that happens. I'm confidently going to start Geno Smith this week at Detroit. Running back, Sharples.
Yep. I've gone for a guy who this last week changed my opinion on him because me and Al talked about him on the pod, and I think both of us said that he showed flashes, but we didn't have too much hope that it continued. But it looked good, so I've gone for Braylon Allen, running back for the Jets, projected 8.8 this week. He does. I mean, small sample size again, but he does look to be emerging as more than just a backup to Breece Hall. This past week, he had 11 carries compared to Hall's 16, and he caught a few passes as well. With the Broncos, like we were saying before, that result against the Buccaneers came from nowhere, and so it's kind of hard to predict how this one's going to go. Game script wise. The Broncos put up 26 against the Bucs last week, which pretty much nullified all of Tampa Bay's running backs. But I'm hoping that the Jets can get up early and stay up. There's no guarantee that he gets as much work as he did last week, but he showed in week 2 that he can make a lot out of little opportunities. He found the end zone twice, one with a rush, one with a reception. And so, with his projection being the value that it is, I mean, he's almost a shoo-in to be a hit if he gets a touchdown. And so I'm just gambling that he does. Braylon Allen against the Broncos.
Nice. Al?
And I am going to go for some of a modest projection as well. I'm going to go Tajay Spears, projected 9 at Miami. Good matchup. Miami currently bottom 5 fantasy rush defense, allowing 6 touchdowns through 3 games. Now, Pollard has kind of been the guy in the first 3 weeks, even though this coaching staff does keep saying it's a committee. There's 2 of them. But Pollard's gotten worse every week, is basically what I'm saying. So I think Spears will get his opportunity in every game, particularly in this one. I think they'll have chances, again, to score points. But I think they're both good players this week, so I'm just going with the guy with the lowest projection because we're playing the projection game, of course. Bad defence. Spears has got some juice. Could become the hot hand for this game, so yeah.
Nice. I've also got a modest projection. I did find a lot of the projections were quite high this week for running back, which is why I'm going Bucky Irvin versus the Eagles, projected 10 points. A lot of rookies on the episode today. I was obviously talking about the guys who have done really well. We picked, a couple of rookies here. Maybe that should be the name of the episode. The rookies, them rookies are coming. Or maybe not that, but something along those lines. Bucky Irvin, he's looked really good. 145 rushing yards to Rachaad White's 66, and that's on 7 fewer carries. You can't deny so far this year, Irvin, he's looked like the more explosive runner. Plus, Rachaad White was always more of a volume guy. He was never the most efficient running back. White still has the passing numbers, but Irvin, he's not been shut out of that phase of play. Like, he's still seen 6 targets in 3 games. And following the game this past weekend, head coach Todd Bowles has come out and said Irvin has deserved. He's earned more snaps going forward, and I'm buying into that. And what he's done with his opportunity so far, I'm excited of the prospect of Irvin getting more work. Tampa Bay have actually faced a lot of harder defenses in terms of the run. The Eagles are going to be one of the easier ones they've come up against, and the Eagles have actually given up over 100 yards 100 total yards to a running back in each game this season. So Saquon Barkley and Alvin Kamara and Josh Jacobs. So I think it'll be much more of a 50-50 split in this one. I think there's going to be yards to go around, and I think Irving is going to impress again. Let's go wide receiver. Sharples, finish it out.
I have pivoted on this one, lad, so I'm hoping that I've not taken anyone else's, but I would be surprised if I have. I was watching the Bengals Commanders highlights, and all I could think to myself is, who on earth is this guy that Joe Burrow keeps throwing to in the red zone? It's not Jamar Chase. It's not even T. Higgins. It's Andre Yosivas. Probably butchered that name. If you're listening, Andre, I'm sorry. Projected 8.8 points this week, coming up against the Carolina Panthers. If you're wondering who I pivoted from, it was Deontay Johnson. That projection just kept sneaking up, and it got to 15.2, and I just thought, do I want to be the guy that picks Johnson and then the Panthers look the exact same and he gets 0 points? No, I don't. So that's why I went for Andre. Despite T. Higgins coming back, Yosivas has looked to almost be the wide receiver 2, really, at least in Joe Burrow's mind. In the red zone, he's had 5 targets and 3 touchdowns over the last couple of games. Obviously, he can't live off just that, but his targets have been creeping up. Got a season high 7 last week, which he turned into 5 for 52 and a touchdown. Certainly not a certainty, but if you're desperate and you're close to madness like I am in the main league, I think he's worth a punt. They're coming up against Carolina team, which might put up points. I mean, we saw it last week. Who knows? But, Jamar Chase is always going to attract the attention, and I'm just hoping that it gives Yosivas the room to scurry in, nick another touchdown, and get me a hit.
Nice. Al?
Well, I've gone for Mike Evans. Projected 14.7 against Philadelphia. Not been a great last 2 weeks for Evans, but it hasn't been for Mayfield either. If you look at passing yards, passed under 200 in both of those games, I think that directly correlates to Evans' struggles. You've got Godwin having a great season, getting a lot of the underneath work. How I think that's going to affect Mike Evans is, I think we've gone back to Mike Evans of old, where it's kind of boom bust rather than the really steady, consistent flow that Mike Evans had last year. So I think you've got to pick those boom games when they come along, and I think this one against Philadelphia will be. They've looked lost in defense apart from rallying this past week against the Saints, but Mike Evans is better than any wide receiver that the Saints have got. So I think you see a lot of real life points in this game. I think it's going to be a really good one to watch, and expect a bounce back for Evans. A lot of fantasy success.
Nice. I'm going to go Jackson, Smith and Jigba at Detroit, projected 11.7. I'm stacking my wide receiver with my quarterback pick, so a lot of the stuff I said about Geno applies to JSN as well. The Seahawks have a 62% pass rate on their offensive plays this year and a 6.1% pass rate over expectation. Basically, taking out, specific game script and stuff, if a team's down by loads, obviously they're going to pass and all that. But taking out those variables, how often are they calling a pass play? And from that 6.1 pass rate over expectation, we can see that the Seahawks are leaning heavily on the pass over the run, in neutral game scripts and stuff like that, which is great news this week because, as I said, when I'm talking about Geno, Detroit are a very pass funnel defense, and it's even better news for JSN because Detroit are currently giving up 22.8 fantasy points per game to the slot wide receiver, which is the most in the league so far this year. JSN has had 80 snaps in the slot position this year, which is the most of any wide receiver in the league. So you've got a team giving up loads of points through the air, specifically to the slot, and you've got a wide receiver on a team who likes to throw it, who is in the slot more often than anyone else in the league. This one, again, makes a bit too much sense. That's why it's a bit scary. But JSN had a great week too. It came back down to earth last week, but now we've seen that elite performance in week 2, we know it's possible, and I think we're going to see another one this week. I'm really excited to play Check the Smith and Jigba this week. And Sharples, let's close it out with your game tiers.
Yeah, quite positive this week. I think more good than bad. I've got 3 in the grey. One of them might be some pushback on, but I'm going for it. I think it could be a lot of points in that game. So we've got the Packers, Vikings, Ravens, Bills, and the Panthers against the Bengals.
Right, here's the thing that I like. That I knew that this was going to come up somewhere. You can't put this in the grey. However, I do think it's strange that you've got 1 and 2 team versus 0 and 3 team, which should be toilet bowl of the year so far, and it's just not. I get the kind of the sheer I need to see what this game is, but I don't think we can put it in the grey.
It could just as equally finish 35-all as it could 0-0. So
yeah.
In the good, we got the Giants against Cowboys, Falcons, Saints, Buccaneers, Eagles, Cardinals, Commanders, and Lions, Seahawks. Into the meh, we got the Texans against the Jaguars, Jets, Broncos, Bears, Rams, and 49ers, Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that makes me want to watch the Jets Broncos is the kind of the recent bad blood between those two. Is the Zach Wilson Bowl, / Sean Payton Bowl / what was that guy called? That bald guy?
Hackett.
Hackett Bowl.
Hackett Bowl.
Yeah.
Into the bad, Colts, Steelers, Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders, Browns, Dolphins, Titans.
Yeah, Raiders, Browns, Dolphins, Titans are 2 awful games. Yeah.
Cheers, Sharples.
Thank you.
And that'll do us, lads. Any closing thoughts?
Just, if you're in Germany and you're listening and you see Christian McCaffrey, just say hello from us and try and see when he's going to be back. Maybe, I don't know.
Just ask him, stop him on the street, accost him, physically accost him on the street.
No, don't do that.
I just want to say a quick one to all my fellow 1 and 2 tours out there. 1 win, 2 losses. You might be feeling down the dumps, feel like the season's already gone, and it probably is.
Okay, right.
If we're speaking to our people, I would just like to say to all the 3-0 people, work's not over yet, but high five. Lou, what record are you? Do you want to say something to the people of the...
In what league?
Main league. We're talking about the main league, mate.
1 and 2.
Okay.
But, it's the same sentiment I pass on to my beloved Dallas Cowboys. We're never out of it. There's more games to be played. There's more football to be played. Come on,
Very
boys.
Inspirational.
That'll do us. All right.
Right.
Thanks for listening. Enjoy week 4.
See ya.